And welcome back to Louis Loves Mini's mini lesson, where we take a miniature part of your time to teach you a small step on how to paint your first mini. And this series has brought us so far to the point where we are now ready to prime this miniature. If ever you're seeing this for the first time, we tackle how to clean and build and prepare our miniature in the previous videos in this playlist. Now when it comes to primers, there are a lot of various different options, and of course as a beginner, I would recommend that you get into spray cans first. There are people who hand brush their primers, and there are also people who airbrush their primers. Rattle cans or spray cans is the most accessible and low entry method to get into priming a miniature. And priming a miniature is very important because its primary role is to make your paint adhere to the plastic. This plastic, which is your miniature, is quite slippery, and you want something to make sure it's rough or matte enough so that when you apply water-based paint to it, the paint will stick and you won't have a hard time painting over it. The second purpose of priming your miniature is because it acts as an undercoat. Notice here we have different colors, and the undercoat is in white, gray, and black. Now normally some colors may have an easier coverage over certain types of primers. As you can see here, the white color has an easier time translating obviously over a white primer, whereas it has a harder time getting nice clear coverage over black, which means if you're applying white paint over a black primer, you may need to apply 2 or 3 more coats. And that goes for most colors. Lighter colors may generally have an easier time over a lighter primer, and darker colors may have an easier time over darker primers. Of course, you'd have to experiment, and over time you'd get it over different types and brands of paints, which we'll tackle in future videos. For now, we are going to prime our miniature using primer gray. And if you're from the Philippines, Bosnia is one of the more popular brands that we take and buy because it's very affordable, it's very accessible, and it's very easy to apply for beginners. And as an everyday hobbyist such as myself, I still use Bosnia paint. Now we are outside because aerosol cans is actually one of the first tools that you'll be using, which is quite harmful to your health. The fumes that are produced by these aerosol cans should not be inhaled. That's why you should also figure out safety tools for your health. Normally, I would recommend that you invest into an actual painting mask. But if you're just starting out in the hobby and you want to see if this hobby is for yourself, rule of thumb, keep adding different layers of cover until you can't smell the aerosol. The moment that you start to smell the aerosol, it means you gotta add more layers. Normally 2 or 3 or even 4 layers of cloth is enough to cover the aerosol can. Make sure you give it a shake before you start. Now if you're in the Philippine weather or in a tropical weather, you might not have a difficulty with when to spray. Just don't spray it during windy times because it can be hard. Don't spray it outside when it's raining because it will interfere with your model. Now, last thing before we get to this is that make sure the paint or the primer you buy is acrylic based. Most of the paints that you will be using to paint your miniatures are acrylic based, and it does make sense that your primer is of the same medium, which is, you've guessed it, acrylic. Let's get into this thing. When it comes to shaking this thing, there's always a bearing, a little metal ball in most of these things, because that really helps you shake the paint. You want to shake the paint so that when you spray it, all the chemicals inside are evenly mixed. The moment it's not evenly mixed and you spray it, you won't get a nice result. So always give it a good shake, and a good shake is about maybe a minute of just up, down, left, right, all around. You'll start to feel the paint loosening up as there's less resistance for the ball bearing inside to move around. Now let's grab our miniature over here and hold it. Aerosol spray or this primer is not exactly safe, so always make sure you have something to protect your skin. This is a very, very old piece of construction glove, and as you can see, I've been using it for priming numerous times. And while this is a cloth glove, there are layers of paint that are already blocking paint from going through my skin. I would not recommend this type of glove, especially if it's brand new, because you could get some of the paint to get in touch with your skin. Get a rubber glove or something that's reusable so that you can hold the miniature as you spray, and then you will protect your skin at the same time. Let's go over the technique that we use. When we spray, you just want to be around 6 to 12 inches, and you want to hit the side of the miniature where it's not actually hitting anything. Spray, hold it down, and cross it until it passes the miniature and release. So spray, pass, release. Spray, pass, release. You want to do that because when you spray your aerosol for the first time, it's going to be a spurts and it won't be even. You want the miniature to come in between that little stream, because in between that stream is when you know the paint is more even. We want an even coat on this because we don't want this primer to have a texture to ruin the patterns and details on our beautiful miniature. Spray, turn. Spray, pass. Not turn, but pass. You want to do the upper part, the lower part, the middle part. That's it. Then you turn this to the side. Then let's do the back side. You'll notice that the gray is turning a little bit matte, whereas the areas where you haven't primed are a little bit glossy. But once you apply your primer, it starts to get that matte or rough finish. Then you do up, and then you do from the bottom. This way, you are covering every single part. It doesn't have to be thick. You don't have to cover everything. You just have to make sure the entire miniature has some primer on it. So just do the sides, the top. So the reason why you don't want to do one continuous spray is, one, it's very wasteful. Two, I'm holding down the spray, for example, here at this point, and I spray here and I go back. There's a chance that I will overlap on the same layer and make the primer thicker than it necessarily needs to be. You don't want thick primer. You just want a layer to be the adhesive between the paint and the plastic of your miniature. You'll notice here the thinness of the primer, because while the primer is gray, it's not entirely covering the red and the white of the texture paint we applied in the last episode. I don't want primer to be thick. I just want primer to be a layer to secure the future paint layers that I'll be putting on. This dusting is enough. And that episode of Louie Loves Minis miniature mini lesson is enough for today, because in the next 2 weeks we'll be coming up with a video on how we can finally apply a base coat. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Actually, I don't know if the audio, the mic is facing here, so I don't know if you got that, but basically we're ending the episode. Thanks so much for watching. This is my beautiful hand. I'll see you next week. I'll see you in the next 2 weeks, and where we learn how to paint and base coat our miniature. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.